On today's Try to Finish Something, if you watched my May the 4th video, you already know I've been having problems for a while. In fact, I already recorded an intro for the build that is going terrible. Let's just go back in time for just a second. On today's Try to Finish Something, it's almost May the 4th. Be with you. And I have a Star Wars project that I'm going to build. I have a Echo Dot, and it doesn't look Star Wars enough. So my idea is I'm going to hide that dot inside the head of a droid. The droid? A BD-1 droid. BD-1 droids seen in the Star Wars video games, or more recently, in Book of Boba Fett. It's the flashlight droid that Mando uses to aim light on him as he is reconfiguring and doing his new ship. My idea is my BD-1 droid will be a Mandalorian era salvaged droid called TTFS 1. Huh? Try to finish that? You get it, right? So my idea came from a trip to the hardware store where I saw these. It's a bathtub spa jet, and when you loosen this ring, it looks like the eye moves around. To me, I immediately thought BD-1, and this was the inspiration for this build. I didn't buy it at the hardware store. I found it on Amazon and got an entire bag of them for about the same price. Hopefully I won't need this whole bag of them, but I am going to make a salvaged BD-1 droid. And then when I'm done, I'm going to make all of the files available on my Facebook group, Try to Finish Something. If you're not yet a member, jump on over there and become a member of my Facebook group, because anytime I create patterns, I make them available free for you to use however or alter however you want. Yes, I am new to Adobe Illustrator, so I'm hopefully not biting off more than I can chew. And it's definitely going to take more than one video, but a BD-1 droid is in my future. And that's what I'm going to do on today's Try to Finish Something.
And this is how it all started. An Alexa Dot that needed to be part of something Star Wars for May the 4th, a camera lens, and a full pack of these tub jets. Oh, and this mini ball joint that will be the neck of my BD-1 droid. And this is a stack of laser cut pieces that I designed in Adobe Illustrator. And yes, it's a large stack. I've already cut 3 or 4 versions of this and redesigned it over and over. I am fairly new to designing in Illustrator, so it's taking me a lot of revisions and a lot of time. A lot. I am currently using acrylic in this, but I actually wanted to do it in wood, but I didn't have any Glowforge wood panels. And the secret is, after all of these mess-ups, I didn't have any acrylic panels either. I love using acrylic because it's so great to paint, because it's smooth and you don't have to worry about sanding. The problem is I am using super glue to attach the pieces, and because it's acrylic, it's not porous and the glue runs and gets everywhere. And I've been glued to these panels so many times. And I've found that when you use wood, you can use super glue and wood glue, and the bond is so much better, at least for me anyway. And yes, I am peeling off a ton of these layers, or weeding, I guess, as it's supposed to be called. So my plan is a basic box with a face on the front, and inside another recessed box that the ball head joint will mount into, and I'm starting to panic. This is so many versions into this, and I have my doubts that this version is going to work either. And I'm using every scrap edge of these acrylic sheets that I can, and I am really running out of material. The basics are working. The ball head inner box will also be the platform for the Alexa. Then there will be a grill over the top of the dot to hide that, and that part is mostly working. And this glue is smearing everywhere. I don't have any fingerprints at all. I wound up getting a call on my iPhone and it wouldn't recognize my fingerprints. That's how bad it's gotten. But my plan for the face is also working. Mostly. food in that jet, and I shouldn't have, because there was supposed to be another piece of the eye, kind of like an eye bag to make that wider, and I can't get it out. And I'm starting to get really frustrated because, so I'm realizing that this is a total bust again, and I'm getting really frustrated, but I'm trying to just keep moving forward to see if the other parts are working. I'm now realizing that this won't be my final version again, and I'm just using this as another test version. Now, these are the eyebrows, and I'm not sure how they're going to go in the final version of this, but they are going to slot in here. Nope. This is a total waste of time and materials. And this is the top of my head, and that's because I'm pouting, and I have my head in my hands, and I may or may not be crying. All right, I'm kidding, but I am not pleased with this project and realizing that there is going to be no video this week, and look at all of this waste.
And that pretty much brings us current. I, of course, had the COVID, so I was in a different mental state, but I was so frustrated. I was ready to give up, not just on this project, but doing videos altogether. And it reminded me of something that Wesley Treat. Wesley Treat is a YouTube guy that I follow who makes mostly signs, and he's an amazing builder, and he's very funny, and I just really like the production value and everything that he does. And I had reached out to him along with a bunch of other makers when I first started my YouTube channel, just asking for advice. And he said, I'll tell you this, when I was ready to give up, that is when things turned around and I became successful. And I started thinking, everybody has their own level and their measurement for success. And I don't know what success is for this YouTube channel, but I didn't want to give up. I wanted to keep going. And I realized after I put out that Happy May the 4th video, I got a lot of responses from people saying that they had also gotten to points in builds where they wanted to give up and didn't want to keep going and didn't want to do it anymore. And as a maker public service, I reached out to some other people that had been doing this a lot longer than me and asked for their advice so that they could share it with the maker community. Here's a couple people. Let's see what they have to say about times where they've wanted to give up.
One of the really hard things for me with failure is not losing my momentum. It's oftentimes there's just, it failed, and just want to flip the table. I try my best to remember that a failure isn't the end. For the longest time, especially when I was younger, a failure was the end, but it's not. A failure is just something that I hadn't planned for. A failure isn't something that I wanted to happen. And if I'm able to keep that in mind, and if I'm able to come at it from, okay, that's not what I wanted to do is this, and then I'll rethink what I'm doing and try and get it to work more like the way I was expecting. And this could be as simple as the way I cut something. You cut something in a weird way and it curls, and I didn't want that. That's not a failure, I just cut it wrong. Or there's points when I'm trying to code up an Arduino and it's not blinking correctly. That's not a failure, I just forgot punctuation, right? So it's, I guess, don't give up. It's as cheesy as that is, but really it's just things aren't going the way I expected them to, and that's all it really is. And it's not exactly failure because I'm creating. And as long as I keep creating, then I'm not failing.
Shawn reached out and asked about failure on projects, specifically how we deal with failure on a project. The truth is, I don't. What I mean by that is I'm one of those that believes that failure means I've given up entirely, that I've walked away from the project, that I never tried to solve the problem and never picked it back up again. And I try often to not fail at a project that way. What I think of a project challenge is more of an iteration. I read in Adam Savage's book, Every Tool's a Hammer, that he refers to this process as iteration of a project. That really resonated with me because typically when I take on a project, maybe with something or elements to it that I don't fully understand how I'm going to accomplish it, I know that there will be challenges along the way, and that I'm going to have iterations of that project going forward. So ultimately, I try to take each of those on, and when I have something go wrong or doesn't turn out the way I want, I focus on what I've learned as a result. Did I research enough at the beginning before I started? Did I learn something about the process that I can change? Or did I develop questions that I can go and research somewhere else that helps me to ultimately get through the challenge in front of me? So I guess what I'm saying after all these words is be aware that as you start a project, you're going to face challenges. There are going to be things you've never done before that you're going to have to overcome. And instead of looking at it as a failure or walking away entirely, learn how to recognize the things that happened through the process so that you can learn where you need to expand your knowledge in order to get the project that you were looking for to come out the way that you wanted it to. So what I'll leave you with is this. Allow yourself to be creative and allow that creative process to take you to places you may never have been before. And though you'll stumble and you'll find challenges throughout the project, make sure that you don't turn it into a failure, that it becomes an iteration.
It happens to all of us. And I'm not going to give up. I'm going to continue on and try and get this thing finished. The wood just arrived, and it's time to get back to the build. I'm going to finish this thing.
So here is the Glowforge pack of project wood and my lens and my spa jet, and I'm in a better state of mind now. The COVID is gone, and here is the new iteration fresh off the Glowforge. You know, Brian and Odin are right. Being creative isn't something that you just do. I always force myself to learn new techniques and go into big projects expecting to just be able to do what I see in my mind. And creativity, it takes practice and experimentation and things you never planned for. Some of my favorite projects are builds that I learned the most from and had the biggest learning curve on. You can't learn without some failures or without some iterations. Now, I'm gluing the eye bags on with super glue and wood glue to add some thickness to this part. I took everything out and basted it in white and putting the flashlight eye, or the spa jet, in. It is all now redesigned to be a super tight pressure fit and no need for glue. Now, back outside for a layer of Montana Gold Sierra Beige, which will be my final color for this droid. Now what I'm doing here is the paint hasn't fully dried and I'm just scratching the edges so that the white shows through as chipping. Now using one of my iterations to mask the part that I will add some brick red accents to. I'm just mixing some red with some other colors to get the shade that I want. Alright, I gave up on the masking and I'm just hand painting it. Luckily for me, this will be scratched and worn so it doesn't have to be perfectly painted lines. Now I'm just adding the lens to the right side of the face. And gluing the box head together. I'm using wood glue and super glue again. And once this is all together and dry, I can add that interior structure that will be the platform that the ball joint will attach to and that my dot will sit on. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm just rounding the corners so it looks less like a squared box. But the good news is the BD droids are very boxy, which is why I chose to do it with laser printing as opposed to 3D printing. Well, that, and I haven't taught myself how to 3D model yet either. That's coming later. All right, gluing the face on. And put the dot cover vent together. Now I've designed it so that I can drop a bolt through the platform and screw the mini ball head into the underside of this chamber. And now you can see why there were so many iterations. There are so many things dependent on others to work, and I am new to all of this creating patterns, and Yes, I am overly impatient. Again, I'm going to make these files available in my Facebook Try to Finish Something group. If you haven't joined yet, any files that I make available absolutely free as a thank you for watching these disasters. Now, this top panel is made to attach with 4 Allen bolts so that you have access to the inside to get to your dot if you need to. All right, I'm just starting the initial process of weathering. I'm using brown and black water-based oils, and I'm also using a bit of green and some yellow here and there to add some variety to the tones. And now, the eyebrows. Now, because the laser cutter will only cut 90-degree angles, I'm having to sand an angle into these edges where they meet so that I can glue these pieces together and have it turn out the right shape. And what I'm doing is I'm using super glue and kicker to get these angles right and so that they attach quickly. Now, the top part of that eyebrow isn't glued in yet. When I get all of these angles right, I will pull out this top piece and then reinforce these angles with more glue if it all comes out like I planned. And completely opposite from last week, it worked. It's one piece with all the right angles. I'm going to add some extra glue and kicker now. Now, when you use super glue and kicker, sometimes it adds some dimensionality to the project because that glue dries so fast, and I'm okay with this not laying perfectly flat. I'm going to sand this, and I'm going to add a rust texture to the seams and parts of these brows. I'm going to sand these hard edges down a bit and hit it with some paint, but first, I have this bag of Greeblies from Malia, the person I am working on the Raven Queen cosplay for. I'm going to borrow a few small grills and these light fixtures and this security camera to add a small antenna to the side. I mixed some baking soda into some craft paint that is pretty close to my Sierra Beige. I'm going to add some texture to the parts that I want to be rusty. Some of the edges, some of the seams, and the side that has this antenna, like maybe water has gathered on that antenna there and ran down on the antenna side. This salvaged BD-1 has been around for a while, so it needs rust to show that. All right, outside again to give it a coat of my Montana Gold spray paint, and let's glue this thing in. It will get glue in the notch made to slot this in, and there are tabs on the side that are made to be glued where it contacts the eye bags. I'm just brushing on the super glue with a brush that is going to be headed to the trash when I'm done. Now, while I glue all of this on, I wanted to thank those of you that have used the Amazon wish list that I set up to support the channel. It is so amazingly cool. I will put a link in the comments and in the video description, but if you would like to do the same, I'll have a full list of thank yous in the next video. But this super glue and a cool turntable I'm going to use in a minute to display this at the end is all from supporters of the channel and all purchased through that Amazon wish list. Thank you so much. And also a big thanks to my amazing Patreon members who continue to blow me away with the great questions for the podcast episodes and their monthly support. All right, it's finally my favorite time, rust time. I'm taking this Tamiya rust and I'm getting it down into the texture that I made with the baking soda. I will also add some cheap orange and yellow craft paint and just really get it down in there. Now, it's going to look a bit over the top at first, but once I add the brown and black water-based oils, it will tone that back down. Now I'm getting that down into all of the crevices as well, and I am putting it on a bit heavy, and what I'm doing is I am wiping it off with a paper towel in the direction that the water would run off to give me those smears. All right, I am liking this, and I am glad that I kept going on it. And I'm calling this finished for this episode. And I have a few surprises left for this build, including what I'm going to do in the sides of this head, and this droid obviously needs a body. I really hope you liked this video, and consider liking and subscribing, and maybe even grabbing something off that Amazon wish list or becoming a Patreon member. And if you didn't, as always, just keep it to yourself. And oh yeah, TTFS1, play the theme song to try to finish something.
Now playing the theme song to try to finish something.
By the way, that was all editing and trickery. I wish I could get my dot to respond to that. Anyway, enjoy some glamour shots, and we'll see you next time.